Hello and welcome to 52 Weeks. This week we're going to be continuing through Chapter 4 in the Parks, Civic, and Open Spaces. And specifically we're going to be looking at the next 6 weeks on the types of parks and public space that are discussed in Chapter 4. So one of the examples in here is the Curtain Street and Atlas Playway concept. It was just an idea that was put together looking at green spaces, living streets, and knitting together a play area that's a bigger Emerald Street playground with alleyways and continual community gardens that are there. We've got Harrisburg's Recycle Bicycle and Bike Share headquarters. Tying this together makes sense within the neighborhood and really is something that provides that social infrastructure that supports both mobility and green space in Harrisburg. Getting back to Warren Manning's original idea of locating parks close to proximity so we don't have to drive and we don't have to take a trolley. We no longer have a trolley in Harrisburg. We have buses, but the same concept is there, long distance transit. Public-private partnership parks are important. So another precedent that we looked at, the Old 6th Street spur. This is the dead end of the Old 6th Street as it meet up with Commonwealth Avenue. This is an underutilized dead end street spur that has the potential to be developed into a significant small hardscape park serving the neighborhood and the Capitol Complex employees. Provided there's a deep connection between Forester Street, that has to be rethought from a transportation corridor to a street that just happens to be wide in an urban neighborhood. These are two different ways to look at it. It's a design solution of what really matters. If we only think our cars matter and the commuters matter, we are going to design those spaces to accommodate them. If we think that our people and place matter, then we're going to design the streets to focus on that. We're going to have better quality in an urban environment, and that actually feeds into a positive thinking and mental health within our environment. The city does care for us, and we actually care for the city. This space could also be a significant new green urban space that is lacking within this area of the city. Another thing that's important is parklets. These pop up every now and then. HYP does a few of these. The public-private partnership parks can have this as a miniature park that is usually located next to a sidewalk, one or more on-street parking spaces. So that connection is there. These have been done in the past. I remember through the early decade, 2010, 11, 12, some of these things had popped up. I haven't seen many recently happening. The encroachment into the public realm and particularly parking spaces is important. I think what's pushing against that now is that we've got standard parking that does not want to lose any parking on-street parking spaces. That revenue matters to an entity which is not necessarily an entity in Harrisburg. So here we are with this crux problem and this conundrum is that we try to work out these relationships, but in the end, it begins to harm how we interact and build within our social groups or the structure that's necessary and have a better quality of life for all residents. Yeah, the thing with the parklets would be great seeing these more throughout the city. And right now, I know some of these that have happened downtown. One push is because of the standard parking could be losing revenue because of putting these out in the parking, on-street parking. The thing would be, let's put these out in other locations. There's no reason on Market Street, up in Allison Hill or the Hill District or areas of Camp Curtin that this couldn't start up. The neighborhood associations could go and purchase the equipment, purchase this stuff, get the proposal for permit on the city, and start to have this. This could be a once a month type of thing. This is a very tactical urbanist type of viewpoint. If you look up that book, it's very important. You're going to encroach into public space and actually make life better for residents. And if this was done, say, in Camp Curtin and Allison Hill, even once a month, that this was a big thing that happened, you begin to actually build a place for people to meet and dialogue and grow. And this could be meeting places for these associations, these neighborhood associations, to begin a strategic plan on how do we continue to do this so that it's just permanent. These are very big issues to think about, but it's not out of the realm of all of our residents and our concerned citizens in Harrisburg. Parklets typically have seating areas and planting, making them friendly places for people to gather. They not only help attract customers to adjacent businesses, but also create more public social spaces and increase civic pride. Here's some examples of building social infrastructure and places for civic engagement is really the benefit of this in the long term. Pulling all this together in this small little section of playgrounds, we got the 3 horizon thinking, community capacity building. Goal 4.11 is to develop a network of neighborhood playgrounds and parks within walking distance of all residents, determining locations throughout consultation with neighborhood associations. If we can collaborate and have a 3 horizon thinking of what the future is going to be, we can begin to work as neighborhood groups, as concerned residents and citizens, build these places that foster this civic pride and also civic engagement. So we look at these two things. We need to build the social infrastructure, and we need to build the civic engagement. You can see here there's an idea post that was from the initial engagement through 2016, tax dollars to fund sidewalks. People deserve a nice place to walk, aesthetically better. We're looking at statistically drives down crime. There's that link for Philadelphia and the University of Pennsylvania with mental health and vacant lots that are now tended to. And trees planted and plants are put in place to create a nice spot to walk or be in neighborhoods. These parks begin to the statistics have shown that these parks begin to affect the mental health of residents who live nearby. So imagine what that would do if we had this, just started with this as a main thing that all residents, all neighbors could do that really launches off. We had the Great Harrisburg litter cleanup back in April 13th. Imagine taking that and really setting a strategic plan to make this happen so that we increase the amount of neighborhood parks throughout Harrisburg. Again, this has to be done in a process that's consulted neighborhood associations, but also is valued by the city, valued by city council, valued by the Harrisburg Planning Commission, and established as something that is necessary for future growth, particularly again in social infrastructure and civic engagement. That this becomes a thing that what we do to benefit the next 10 years, the next 2 decades of Harrisburg. It goes back to the idea, just as the City Beautiful movement put together a structure, we can do the same small scale as local residents that could really set the stage for 20 years of work to make our places even better. So for residents that live here, they have access to play spaces. And I would say our most important asset is our youth that need to have these places. They need to have this engagement outside of what's happening in school. Thanks again for watching through the 52 Weeks segment, Chapter 4, Parks, Civic, and Open Space. We wrapped up the idea of the neighborhood parks and playgrounds, and we look forward to next week's where we'll be discussing streetscapes. Thanks again and take care.